We are in Yaakov, Brachot, and it's on page in the Art Scroll 51a, and that's where we're holding. We're talking about the blessing of the glass of wine when we say the grace after meals. According to many people, you should be holding a glass of wine with you. That's in other words, when you're leading the Zeman, Rabbi Tam Vela mentioned, so you should to have the cup of wine in your hand. That's and actually even without, some people hold, even if you're by yourself, you should bench over a glass of wine. Which is why, by the way, on Pesach, the third cup of wine is after benching, right? It's right after benching. We make it right away a Bari Pergafen, because that is traditionally. That is, I want to say traditionally, but it's really halachically what one should do when you're benching with a kos. In other words, once I finish benching when I'm using a glass of wine, 1 second. So then what I do is I just make a Bari Pergafen, and then I drink it. If I exempt everybody who's there, and some people, again, we learned this last week, they would send some of the wine to everybody, so everybody could have, or if they all have wine in front of them, they could be exempted with that blessing, and then they all make an alagafen to finish off. Yeah, a glass of wine. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So it says Amarav. So right at the, like I said, at the bottom of the bottom is Amarav Zera, Amarav Abihu. So it's right where it says the Gemara shifts its focus. Okay, you have it. So it's Amarav Zera, Amarav Abahu, Va'amri Le, B'menti Tutana. So Rav Zera is in the name of Rav Abahu, and some say that this was actually taught in a Braita. Here we go. Asara Devarim Nemaru B'Kol Shabracha. 10 things were said regarding the cup of blessing. Again, that cup which we use for benching. Ta'un Hadacha, it requires washing. Ushtifa, and rinsing. Chad, it must be chai, which means that the undiluted. Arshkel explains that chai usually means undiluted. In our case, it cannot mean the blessing is recited over undiluted wine. Why? Because that was too hard to drink. So even the sages who maintain that undiluted wine is classified as wine concede that we do not use such wine for the cup of blessing. Rather, it means that initially undiluted wine should be poured into the cup of blessing, and water should be added for dilution only when the wine is in the cup. Alternatively, chai in our case means fresh rather than undiluted. That is, one should take fresh wine from the barrel or bottle for the sake of the Birkat Hamazon. Another example is that chai refers to the cup itself rather than the wine it contains, and means that the cup should be whole without any crack or chip. So you have a couple of ways to look at what chai means. Either it's undiluted wine, but in their days, the son says something. In their days, the wine was very thick. It was undrinkable if not diluted. That is why you had to pour water into the wine in order to drink it. That's why some people to this very day pour water into their wine before drinking it. It's a mistake that people do because we don't have such strong wine, and if you're using something like grape juice, you're running into the problem of when I dilute it, when I put a little more water in there, is it still a Bari Pergafen, or now is it a Shehakol? So that's the problem they run into. But in general, in wines today, they're very light. They're not. It's not.
In those days, how do we know how it, after fermenting the grape juice, how did it come out so thick?
I don't know
that. Just let a lot of the moisture evaporate from it.
You got me on these things. I never made. The only time we made wine was in 10th grade, and it was shut down because the school said no to the teacher. You cannot make wine with the 10th graders. So we never really saw the end of that experiment. But even he wouldn't have done it right. He just put in some grape juice with some yeast, I think it was. I forget. It was, like I said, 10th grade. But it's but we never saw how it really was thick. And so I don't know. You have to go to a winemaker to find out. I mean, you're stepping on, or whatever, you're getting grape juice out of the grapes.
Yeah.
And you're getting the dregs and everything else. So if it's all fermented.
I mean, a lot of the water from the grape juice must just evaporate or pass.
It could. Yeah.
When you're saying thick, is it actually like a thick, like
strong,
flesh?
very strong.
It's like
Very strong. I don't mean thick, I mean strong.
Okay.
It was very strong, so you had to dilute it. So I don't know. Like I said, I guess the only way to find out, Mr. Ornstein, would be to take a whole bunch of grapes, stomp on them, or do whatever, you just press them, and see what happens. You know, let it ferment. Yeah, remember, you're turning into wine, so let it ferment, and maybe it's just too much to drink. Like I said, it's not thickness, it's strength. That's what it seems to be, anyway. I'm never sure, because I never liked to. What was that wine we used to drink as children? Manischewitz? That horrible cough syrup?
Manischewitz was
Mogen David was a little lighter. Right. But it's, when I had to drink that stuff, I remember I hated wine. With all due respect to Manischewitz and Mogen David, I just couldn't take it. That's why I'm so happy that we have grape juice today. But you also, now today you have everything. Now you have Rashi, you have Keser, you have
We've had good
was it Bartonora? Yeah, so anybody who wants to drink a nice wine, they can find them. Again, not to belittle the original wines that we all grew up on, but it's
You know, the Manischewitz and the Mogen David, it's strange. I read not too many years ago that actually the old Jewish European tradition of winemaking produced very good wines in Europe. So I read that.
right.
And we seem to have lost it in America.
Like the Rothschild. It's the best wine in the world.
Which one? The Rush?
Rothschild.
Oh yeah, is it kosher?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Oh okay, I don't know.
But they have vineyards in southern France.
Oh, it's just a French wine. Okay, yeah. So it's not a matter. I don't think it's a matter of we lost it, because like I said, we have it. We do produce them. I think it was more of a matter. I think it was more of a matter of just expense. People weren't, in order to be kosher, you have to have a rabbi who's watching the process and so forth.
In the 50s and 60s, they weren't making it so much in America, except
Right.
for the Concord grape variety.
Right,
So
right.
it's
So
inexpensive.
right. That's all it was. As time went on and people became more affluent, and they became more, and Balei Shuva became into the picture, who liked the good wines, so the market changed. Like anything else, it's all market. Whatever the market is going to demand, that's what happens.
That's what they'll make,
Right. Okay, let's continue. So so like I said, that's chai. It could either be referring to the wine or the cup. If the cup is chipped or something's wrong with the cup, I shouldn't use it. This would also get into plastic cups, which is why people don't like to use plastic or some other cheap cups that we have. It's not pekavadik for the. It's not honorable for the. That's pekavadik. It's not honorable for the wine. Okay. Then, for the blessing. Then it says, Itor, it requires crowning. What is crowning? Crowning, the Gemara explains, I think it's the next page of the Gemara here, but crowning is where Rabbi Yehudi would crown it by surrounding himself with students when reciting Birkat Hamazon. Rav Chisda would crown it by surrounding it with cups filled with wine. So you have an interesting allusion there to what's going on there, the crowning it. So again, it's showing great respect towards the whole situation. If I have people around me, okay, then atif v'itu, that's ituf and covering covering one's head, like either with a hat, which is again why some people, when they're benching, they put a hat on. What they don't realize is it's supposed to be doing it. Well, at least according to this Gemara, they should be doing it if they're holding the kos. In other words, the kos requires it, not the benching itself. So it's again, some people would cover it. They and again, next page explained. The Gemara is very. It said covering it is Rav Papa would seat himself in his cloak and sit while reciting it. Somebody Rav Asi would spread a scarf over his head. Again, all different ways of showing the that it was respectful. That's all. And as he says, the Mishnah Berurah cites this Gemara as the source for the custom of wearing a hat, in some circles a jacket as well. So you have a whole bunch of things coming from this Gemara. But again, if I'm going to look at the Gemara, is saying when I'm benching with a kos. If I don't bench with a kos, it would seem that I would not have to wear the hat or the jacket. I'm not picking on anybody's minhagim. I'm just saying it seems from the Gemara, from the intent of the Gemara. Whoever wears a hat and jacket goes into height, no problem. Or a hat, not a jacket. Jacket, not a hat. Whatever. Okay. Then what happens is tzlo b'shtei yadav. You take the cup with both of your hands like this. You take it with both of your hands. Why with both of your hands?
So you don't spill it?
No, that would be practical, but no. It's showing respect again to the wine. You want to show how dear it is to you, that you're picking it up with both hands. Okay, then what happens though is you and then you put it into your right hand. So you pick it up with both, and then you leave it in your right hand. Now, that's one thing. The reason with your right hand, and why don't you continue holding with two hands? Because you don't want to show it's a burden to you. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is that the right hand, I saw this before, we'll go through it, but it's symbolizing. Did I skip something? Oh, I did skip something. I skipped one. Mali, I skipped. Mali is full. I have to have the cup of the kos shabracha full. Over, and notice some people spill it over. This also goes for the wine that we make, any blessing of a wine that we're making, like for not only Havdalah, but also for Kiddush, and so on and so forth. Why do they do that? Because, again, you're showing an abundance. You want God to bless you with an abundance.
I thought it was only Havdalah that you actually had to overflow it.
You never have to overflow.
Kiddush takes a full cup, which I think I've read that a full cup means it's mostly full.
No, according to this, again, according to this, it means you should have it filled because you want to show your blessings are full. So some people are very particular about that, and some people, I'm just saying versus the Gemara where we're going, but some people are very particular about this in that they do want to spill over. The Boston Rebbe always spills it over, and told everybody spill over. Friday night, spill it over.
Wow.
Again, it was a show of, I'm pretty sure he did it Friday night. So it was a show of bracha. And he also had everybody making their own kiddush, which is also, at least at a Shabbaton. Everybody had to make their own kiddush. If you had your wife, blah, 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 whatever it was. I mean, if you didn't know how to do it, you could be exempted. But for the most part, he wanted everybody to make their own. So that was also an interesting thing. So, like I said, all those things, take it with your right hand, show how that it's not so heavy. Magbiho karka tefach. You would pick it up from the ground, a tefach, which is approximately 3 to 4 inches. That's to be sitting on the ground. In other words, we're sitting on the ground, we're eating. So I have the cup, so I lift it over the ground, a tefach. If I'm sitting at the table, I don't have to lift it 4 inches, but okay. But that you still have to lift it. Okay, then note in Avbo, you concentrate your eyes on it while you're saying the Birkat Hamazon. V'yesh omrim af mishagro v'matana v'anshe beita. And there is some who say you have an 11th requirement that he says you send it as a gift to the members of the household, namely your wife. And if you remember, this is that's why I say it's very interesting how the Yaakov is working, because that concept that we learned last week about Yalta, where she burned the 400, broke the 400 vessels because they didn't send the wine to her. That comes after this whole Gemara. The Gemara brings this down, and that goes on and on and on. At the end of that very Gemara, we see that story. So it's very interesting why he decided.
Oh, he told her first.
To tell this first, and now put this here. It's like I said, there's a chachma to, there's a wisdom to what he's doing, but nothing is. I don't really get it every time. That's how it works. Okay, so now that was okay. And then we have. Okay, and this is Amr of Yochanan. You still have that. Amr of Yochanan, Anu Ein Lanu. We do not have the custom of keeping all the 10 rules. Ela Arba'a Bilvad. We only have the 4, namely Hadacha, Shtifa, Chai, Umali. Washing, rinsing, being Chai, whatever the Chai meant, either undiluted, and then make a bracha and you dilute it, and then full cup. So now the Maharsha has an explanation on this. He says, what's going on here? You have 10. He said, "Haim kulam atara asara devarim shemitzad kedusha v'tahara." That these 10 things that we're talking about are going from the side of holiness and purity, because the washing from the inside and the rinsing from the outside, they are that everything should be, that the vessel should be clean and spiritually clean from all sides. Now, one other thing we learn halachically is, if you take a clean glass or a cup for your wine, so then you don't have to worry about washing it. In other words, let's say you had a cup, so it was dirty, you should rinse it. That's all it's saying. That's halachic was saying. You should rinse the cup inside and outside, because you don't want things mixed. It's not in honor of the meal that's about, the blessings that's about to be said. You okay? You're looking at it, you don't understand something? No, Mr. Arnson. You have a question on that?
Well, you said that if it wasn't clean?
If it wasn't clean, then that's when the halacha says you should rinse it outside and inside.
So if you took it out of your cabinet
and it's clean, you don't have to. Okay? So the Maharsha, though, seems to be going another way. He seems to be saying that in all cases you should do it. Like I said, halacha is one thing, and then we get into the concept of kedusha. So you could potentially go beyond this. So it seems to be indicating that he's saying you should wash it inside and rinse it outside because of one, cleanliness, which if it's clean enough to do it, and then being tahor, spiritually clean. Chai, why should it be undiluted or without a chip? Al shem hachayim ha'amitim shev berachto. That's because of the one who truly gives life. That's who you're giving a blessing to. Umale, why should it be full? Al shem she'en shum chisaron chas v'shalom v'cheiko. That there should not be anything missing, God forbid, in this person's portion. So again, that's why you're making it a full cup of wine. Itor, this crowning, al shem ha'atara hu shalos, that the crown should be of his. V'ituf, like we explained, prepare your place in front of Hashem. Prusa sudarim, and as they would put on their cloaks, they have a emat d'shmai al mavarech, so that the fear of heaven would be on the person who is leading the blessings. Kedarminim b'rav Nachman v'Yosef b'sof Masechet Shabbat. Fine. V'notel v'beit yadav, he takes it in both of his hands. Al shem hayamin v'asmol. Now here's an interesting thing. He takes it in both of his hands. We said, I said, I love the royal we. I said just before that we're taking because of how dear it is, right? That's the basic reason. The Maharsha gives a very deep reason, and he says the reason you take it with the right and the left is because they represent judgment and compassion. That is, kodesh. That's why it says, lift up your hands to in holiness. V'no to know liyamin. So you put it into your right. Sheyu harachamim govrim aladim, so that the compassion should overpower the din. Because my right hand is, or the right side is compassion. My left side is judgment.
Right.
That's
what does the left-hander do? I've always assumed I should take it like the Lulav and Esrog. I've always assumed I should, then alternate.
Your right, your left is your right.
And to fill in and so forth.
Your left is your right. Okay, but what we're just looking at is why did they say this? So it's a matter of it's a matter of just identifying, on a Kabbalistic level what's going on here. Now, the other thing is also interesting is we have this concept of push away with your left and pull toward you with your right. Now, if you put this into another example, another thing is, why am I pushing with the left and pulling with the right? Because the left is din, is judgment. You're doing something wrong, so I'm pushing you away. But I'm also pulling you with compassion. So I'm really pulling you with my stronger side, with what I want to be the stronger side, the compassion. I'm pushing you away with the din. So the same thing here. I'm taking it up with both, showing that is both compassion and judgment, but I'm ultimately putting it over to judgment, to compassion, saying that compassion should rule over judgment, should overpower judgment. Then it says you should lift it up from the ground. Magbiyu kalfi malas. You're lifting it up towards in an upward fashion. Al shem. Why? Because it says kos yeshur esa. We say this every Motzei Shabbat. We are lifting up the cup. I will lift up the cup of salvation. Right? You say in Havdalah every time. Kikama koso dichtivi bekrai bekos parnio, because there are many times the Torah or the rabbis, or not rabbis, the Psalms, the Bible will talk about glasses and referring to the kosoparaniot, of the glass of tribulation. Like it says, Gamalecha Tavor Kos. He gives a whole bunch of references to that. And so we want to say that I want to lift up instead of the cup of tribulation, I want to lift up or retribution, I want to lift up the cup of salvation. So again, that's why compassion over the lifting up from the ground, sorry. And then it says, Umilat Kos. Are you ready for this? If I take the numerical value of Kos, then I'm going to come out with the same word as Elokim. Yes, I'm going to leave that to you to figure out, okay? Okay. I'll give you Kos. Kos is 86. Okay, so now Elokim is supposed to come out to 86. So I got the other thing right, and it should be 86. So let's see, it's 30, 50, 66. Wait, that's Mem is 40, I'm sorry, 70, 86. There you go. So the Maharsha is correct. It is 86. That's the numerical value of both Elokim and Kos. And why is that an issue? Because Shehumi Din Elokim is the trait of judgment. So therefore, Amar Shezeh Kos Baruch Hu Kos Shal Yeshua V'lo Shaparniot. So that's why we say this Kos that we're lifting us, this should be the glass of salvation and not the glass of retribution. Like it says further on, the aim of Arachan Baruch Hu Al Kos Shaparniot, that Hashem should not bless on the cup of retribution of Al Amar Kizeh Kos Esa Oto, but rather that this is the glass that I will lift up, Hashem Hashem, and the name of Hashem, Shu HaRachamim, that He is the compassionate one. Ekra, I will call to Lahafech Midadin Lamida Rachamim, to turn His trait of judgment to the trait of compassion. With a parsha, okay, and He David Omar because and David said this referring to the glass of the Berk Hamazon in the future and so on and so forth. So and he says Amar Noten and Dav Lo, and then it says you should put so that explains the right and the left hand, right? So then you have it says you should put your eyes in it. Why? So that you should not remove your mind from it. Ella yechaven da'ato lezora kavana, but rather you should intend your mind with this kavana that we just previously talked about, and that's why I'm looking at the wine. Okay, during Birkat Hamazon, it should rather be the cup of salvation rather than the cup of retribution. And then it says, "Mishagro le'anshe beito b'matana." You should send it to your the people of your home with as a present, as he says, derech netina shanotein ayin yafeh. You should do it in the way of the giver, and the giver gives with a good eye and not with a bad eye, so that everybody will be blessed through it. So when I'm giving something to somebody, I shouldn't say, "Here's a cup. You sure you want it?" You don't want that, do you? Right, shouldn't do that. Okay? So then it says, so that's your cup. So that gives you an interesting thing of how much kavod we have to give, or I guess kavod, we have to give to the cup of wine.
So why don't more people, because generally, you go to people's houses, you normally don't see benching over a kos unless there's a minion.
Correct.
It seems to be a custom that's kind of fallen aside unless there's a minion.
There is, even with a minion, you don't see it. Even with a minion, you don't see it that often either.
Really?
It is something that has gone by the wayside. Why? Only God knows. But it's not every time with a minion.
Well, every show I've ever been in that I've been in Challenge to say they always bench over a kos.
That's different. No, you said two different things. If you go to somebody's home, then many times when you have mezumin with 3 or 10, they will not make it over a cup of wine.
10, that'd be a big crowd for a house, 10 men.
Yeah.
Plus all the other people.
Right.
Yeah.
So you normally don't see that. And then when you go to shul though, the reason the shul does because the rabbi is usually there, or the minhag started, so they have it there, and they'll bench for the kos.
But it's telling us here that we really should.
And
people don't.
What I'm saying is we're looking at a Gemara, which we're not looking any further than that. So there's going to be some disagreement. There's going to be, when it comes down to halacha, does he rule like this? Doesn't he rule like this?
Okay.
And that would be the question. Certainly, the Mishnah Berurah says this is where some people wear the hat and the coat, and this is what he brings down to bench. He would probably bring down you should use a kos, and ultimately it comes down to this though: whatever we're used to is what's going to happen. Why don't some people say Havdalah at home? Because they saw it at shul.
Yeah.
So their wife never has Havdalah, or their wife makes it at home, which is also connected halacha. It's not halachically, at least for us as Ashkenazim, it's not halachically permissible for a woman to make Havdalah. It's not. It's supposed to be the husband sets it for her, because the whole argument as to whether or not she's obligated to make it. If it's connected to Shabbos, she's as the Mechaber says, then she's obligated to make it. If it's not connected to Shabbos, like the Ramah says, she's not allowed to make it because she's making a bracha of Atala. So you have a whole question there. So that's why for Ashkenazim we're supposed to go home and make it for our wives and daughters. What happens is we hear it in shul, we've fulfilled our obligation, we no longer can say it for them. Otherwise, a bracha of Atala for us too. It's a blessing in vain for us to say. If I already said it, I can't say it for her because she may not be obligated. So what am I making it again for? If a male is there, so then we can always say it, no problem. But because that's Kol Yisrael Rebbe Zeh and so on and so forth. But for a woman, you can't. So some people grew up never seeing their father say Havdalah, so they don't say Havdalah. And they don't realize I shouldn't say it in shul. I shouldn't exempt myself at shul, really, or wherever they are. I should wait till I get home to say it. and so on and so forth. So people grow up not seeing that. I'll give you another thing. Women going to mikvah. The daughters didn't see it because it's a very private situation. So the daughters don't see it. They don't know what's going on. So they think, as their mother never went, so why should they go? That was the big thing.
Should instruct the daughters, though.
That was, but the question is, why didn't? Now it's different. But in the old days, a lot of women didn't go to the mikvah because they had no memory of their mother going to the mikvah, and so one rabbi decided in his community. I heard the story that women have to bring their kids, the girls, to the mikveh, so they should not that they should watch them immerse, but to go and during the day. Not during the night.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So they would, because otherwise the kids would sleep.
Yeah.
So he did that so the next generation would grow up saying, my parents went. The problem is now they're going to think they can go during the day. So you lose on both sides. Okay, but it's always a problem. With everything you do is a problem. So here with the cup, I think it's a matter of usage. What am I used to doing? What am I not used to doing? And sometimes you'll bench for the coast. Sometimes you won't bench for the coast. It would be interesting to know because the kids in yeshiva, I'm guessing they all bench. Somebody benches for the coast. But again, if I have 300 kids in what's it called in Skokie, you have 160 kids there, right? So let's say you have 40 kids on Shabbos. Let's say you have 40, 60, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Do they see their Rebbe picking up the kos? And do they assume that it's just something for a yeshiva? Or do they grow up saying, oh, no, this is what we should all be doing? And again, according to that opinion that says I should bench for the kos, it's not just when I have a minyan. It's not when I just have a mezuzah. It's by myself.
Yeah.
So, are you doing it by yourself? Are you doing it? The answer is, I'm guessing not. I'm not doing it. Most of us don't do it. So, like I said, I think certain things fall away. They're still on the books, but they just fall out of use. And maybe when Avi grows up, he may decide, you do it at your house over a coast? No. So maybe when Avi grows up, after hearing this discussion, he'll have his own house. He's going to make it over the coast, and his kids will see it over the coast, and the kids will forever do it like that. And Avi may put a jacket on, he may put a hat on. I don't know. From this conversation, Avi can grow in 1,000 different ways. Okay, so it all depends on what he's going to do. But it's true. It's the same thing for all of our kids. They go more by what we do more than what they see in the halacha. So they assume that if we're doing it, we must have some good reason. Or not doing it, we must have some good reason.
Coming from a position of being about tshuva, you do what you see other people do in their houses, or what the majority of them. That's how you learn stuff. If you didn't grow up like that.
Well, that's true, but that's only if you go. In other words, when I go to a certain segment of the population as a Baal Tshuva, I'm going to see certain things. When I change, when I go to a different segment, I'll see different things. So then but as a Baal Tshuva, you know as well as I do that you have to start saying, okay, they do one thing, this guy does another thing, so what's right?
And either you make up your own mind, or
right. So then you go to halacha and you see what the halacha says, and you try to make an intelligent decision. The best thing is not to go too far upfield here. Do I stand up on Friday night Kiddush or do I sit down?
Ooh.
That's the whole thing. And there's a whole halacha about that.
I saw years ago, and I also saw again with the family we stayed at for the second Shabbos in Israel, is I think via Hulu they stand and then they sit down for break.
Some people stand up for Vayera, Vayibocha, Yom HaShishi, and then sit down. Then sit down. The others say Vayera, and then say Vayichulu, and they stand up for that because Vayichulu is a statement, is giving testimony to God. So they stand up for that. When it comes to the blessing of the wine, they sit down. Other people stand up all the way through, out of deference to the blessings. The Germans. And
then for
I stand up.
The lunch in the daytime, it seems like the majority of people just sit. Period.
Okay, except for the Germans again stand. Because they're consistent on that. They stand. The only ones that are not consistent, as far as I know, is Pesach.
Ah,
There, I believe they sit
yeah.
after the first cup of wine. I believe they sit for every other thing of wine. Okay, but why does anybody sit? By the way, because it says you're supposed to have kiddush in the place of your meal. So it would make sense. I'm going to sit down instead of saying kiddush and then sitting down. Is interruption. So that's why they would do that. Other people say no. You have to have kavod. You have to have honor. When you're giving testimony, this and that, it's not honorable to sit down in the middle. Some people sit throughout the whole thing too. By the way. So yeah, and again, halachically, you have to see what the Ramah says and what the reasons are, and go through the Gemaras. If you're a Baal Tshuva, pick a minhag. I know that goes against the rules of the rabbis, but really, if I'm the Baal Tshuva, it's a matter of me looking and seeing what's halacha and making a decision. I'm not saying choose Machaba over the Ramah. But it's what I'm saying is if you see different if the Ramah is as a German as a Ashkenaz, if we rule like the Ramah, so if the Ramah is bringing a couple of opinions down and basically leaving it up to us, so then what's ever most logical to you? Whatever you feel comfortable with, and you may decide to go with what the community is doing. So that's up to, again. What you should not do is keep changing around every 2 days. That's wrong. I'm saying that's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sure that some people will argue that that's what you should do. Okay. Let's continue. Yeah. So now we go. Oh, I didn't finish this. Okay. So then we have. You have to go. I'm sorry. You need to go, Avi. You need to go to 52B4. 52B4. It feels like bingo here. 52B4. Okay, and it says, am I right? Oh, did I do something wrong here? Wait a second. I take that back. Go back to where you were. Okay. It's the next page. What did I do? I messed up here. Here it is. I'm sorry. It was 51B1. 51B1. And it says Gemara cites two statements by Rav Asi regarding the cup of blessing. Yes? You have it?
Yes.
Okay. So Amar Rav Asi, Ein Masichen al Kos Shabracha. One does not speak over the cup of blessing from the time he takes it in his hand until he finishes the Birkat HaMazon. So one should not speak. Rav Asi, Ein Mevarchen al Kos Shal Peronio. One does not recite a bracha over a kos of punishment, over a glass of punishment. Well, okay, so it says, wow. The Gemara asks, my kos shel paranio, what is meant by this cup of punishment? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, kos sheni. It's the second cup of the meal. Here we're going to get into a whole bunch of fun with demons. Okay. Demons are empowered to harm someone who eats or drinks in pairs 2 or 4 cups of wine. Thus, one should not recite Birkat HaMazon over the second cup of wine of the meal, for when he leaves his table, he will have drunk 2 cups. The demons can get involved. So that is the kos shel paraniot, the kos of retribution, so punishment. Okay. And Tanya Namiach, we also have a bright like this: Ashote kiflayim lo yivarech. Mishum shene'amar hihon likrot Elokecha Yisrael. One should not drink pears. One who drinks pears should not recite the Birkat HaMazon, because it's stated, pray and prepare to go towards your God Israel. And this person is not properly prepared because he drank 2 cups, and it was a reckless. It was just reckless. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. You can ask me about demons. I don't know.
But like for all this, like, what is the Jewish word for like the whole
Shadem
stuff? No,
Kabbalah?
Yeah, for all that stuff. Can you use that as like 2 religious people who disagree with each other? Can they use this Kabbalah stuff as weapons against each other? Not weapons, but like to mess each other up. Like, oh no, yeah, it's okay to say the second wine, whatever, and then have
drink.
them,
No, if you drink 2,
right, it's okay to drink whatever that leads to them getting the demons involved and whatnot. Can people?
Well, you wouldn't do that because of Lifnei Iver. You shouldn't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man. So if the guy doesn't know, then you shouldn't say it to him. You can't lead him down a bad path. Otherwise, you're breaking the law too.
Right. Because it seems like if you can, like, people like get problems if the mezuzahs are wrong or stuff like that. So people check the mezuzahs and it said here and it's like this row is scratched out, which is corresponding to what you have wrong. So if you just get the mezuzah fixed, then it'll be okay. So I've always wondered if you can like sabotage mezuzahs and stuff like that.
Okay, so the way it works like this. When a person, first of all, I shouldn't say it works like this. I don't know how it works.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. Let me say that first. But normally, when we say that, check your mezuzahs, check this, check that, it's not a matter of their amulets.
Right.
It's mezuzah is a command from the Torah. So if I fulfill the commandment of the Torah, then all the blessings come with that blessing, with that, whatever the mitzvah is. And so the mezuzah promise, God says if you have this, so your children will live long, and so on and so forth. Fine, that's all from the verses in the Torah. So let's say that I wasn't careful in that mitzvah. So what I'm doing is I haven't fulfilled the mitzvah, so I don't have that divine protection. That's all. It's not a matter of anything else. I just don't have that. I didn't fulfill that mitzvah, which means that I don't get the benefit of that mitzvah. I think I did, and I was arrogant enough not to buy it from the local 5 and dime and think that that's a good mezuzah. And I put it on my door with a bracha. And so now I made a false bracha. I put in there's nothing in there or whatever. It's not good. And I'm saying, okay, God, I did my job. And God's like, no, you didn't do that. So you can't pull anything on me. Sorry. So something happens. So the rabbi, when something bad happens, so some people will say, like when a bus of a load of kids crashes. So that's when suddenly you hear the rabbis yelling, check your mezuzah, which is not the thing to yell at that point, but okay, fine. They yell that out, and lo and behold, somebody finds that their mezuzah was no good, and they're vindicated in their minds, okay? But it's really not nice to say. But there's something to the mezuzah. I'm not going to argue that. There's something to checking out our mitzvot and making sure we're doing them properly. Our tefillah, mezuzah, any one of the things we're doing. So we, because again, each one of them has an effect in the spiritual realm, and so, or it could have the opposite effect if I'm not doing it correctly. It could. So here, what he's saying is, regardless of how we hold about demons in today's day, they were saying when you eat in pairs. By the way, what you should have asked, I'm surprised nobody asked me, the 4 cups of wine on Pesach.
Oh yeah.
That should be in it says that's also pairs. Why can we be allowed to drink that? So when do we make a bracha? When do we leave benching? On the 3rd kos. We don't bench on the 4th. We bench on the 3rd, right? So it's not pairs. That's how they get away with that. And so now the 4th glass is a separate glass. So I had 2, I had 3, and then 1. That's probably how they get away with that, and not getting involved with the shadim. But it's, like I said, what you're dealing with here is an idea that we just don't get because we're not involved in that. And I'm not going to pretend to understand it. And we all like to laugh at it. It's cute, very cute to read. But it's something going on which we don't understand. And so, but the bottom line is the saying, if you don't listen, if a person is going to lead the benching on the 2nd cup of wine, so what they've done is put themselves into danger. Because regardless, by the way, let's understand something. Whether I understand it or not, if demons really exist, then we put ourselves into danger. And that's kosher praniot. If demons no longer exist, then it doesn't matter, right? The rabbis held they did exist. So who am I to argue on the rabbis? Like I said, it could be they existed at one time, they no longer exist, or whatever. I mean, May they still exist? I have no idea. We still do Nitzilat Dime in the morning, and that's because we say that the evil spirits of Ruach Ra'ah is still at the ends of our fingers, and we go, that's a demon of its sort. We do a lot of things for these demons, kind of nahara. That whole concept of when we say not for the evil eye, we have the concepts. They're riddled throughout our statements. So.
So we have a belief in a spiritual realm, right? The shamas are floating around
right.
in a person's barn, person dies, the shama's always there. So
right.
there is a spiritual realm, and who knows? And there's Moachim,
right?
Spiritual beings, whatever else. Who knows what else is out there? So, like you say, that's
so they say that Shadim, by the way, as compared to Malachim, Shadim were the not completed spirits. They're, like I said, demons. I don't know. So they weren't the completed things. Hashem wanted them for some reason in the whatever Hashem didn't want would not be here. Let's understand that. So Hashem, for whatever reasons, wanted these Shadim, whatever that is translated to be, and so much so that it says they were saved on the Teva, on the Ark. Why the spiritual being had to be saved on the Ark, Noah's Ark, I have no idea. There's another thing. I have no idea why they would have to be saved by an ark. Why couldn't they be saved? They're spiritual. Leave me alone. They can't swim. I mean, give me a break. But again, we don't understand it. And so when we don't understand it, it sounds crazy to us. I'm being straight with you. It sounds crazy. And we just have to say, shake our head and go, and that's the end of it. You can't do much with it. Like I said, you can take their advice and try to avoid, don't just have 2 cookies, have 3, make yourself safe. Or one, right. You have 1 or 3, but not 2. So when you're eating that second piece of pizza, now you have an excuse. I have to have 3. I don't want the shade. Now, the question is 1 slice, is 2 slices a pair? Or does it have to mean I have to have 2 pizza pies? That would be the other shaila. Okay, maybe I have to have 2 pizza pies. I don't know. Okay, we'll have to stop. So we're at the end of, by the way, we're starting chapter 8 next week. So you should have that.